The moment I stepped into the apartment, I knew something was wrong. My suitcase slipped from my hand, my phone stopped buzzing in my pocket, and the silence inside the hallway felt too heavy to belong to an ordinary afternoon. My roommate, Soren, stood near the kitchen doorway with his face pale and his eyes full of something between fear and pity. Before I could ask what had happened, he lifted one finger to his lips and whispered the words that made my heart drop into my stomach. "Someone's been waiting for you." Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when broken people are brave enough to come back, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Ancient Truth. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them today. I had been gone for 8 days on a work trip to Seattle, though it felt more like 8 months. The company had sent me to help close a deal I did not care about, in a conference room full of glass walls, weak coffee, and people who smiled with their mouths but never with their eyes. I spent every lunch break staring at my phone, not because I was waiting for anyone to call, but because I had trained myself to look busy enough that no one would ask why I always ate alone. My name is Arlen Vale, and for the last 3 years, my life had been clean, quiet, and empty in a way that looked successful from the outside. I paid my bills on time, kept my shirts ironed, answered emails before sunrise, and came home every evening to an apartment where nobody expected anything from me except my half of the rent. That was exactly how I wanted it, or at least that was what I told myself. Soren had been my roommate for almost a year. He was a calm, gentle kind of man who collected old cameras and talked to his plants as if they were stubborn children. We were not best friends in the dramatic way people talk about friendship in movies, but he had become the closest thing I had to family in the city. He knew not to ask too much about my past. He knew I did not celebrate my birthday. He knew I kept one locked drawer in my room and never opened it when anyone else was home. And he knew there was one name I avoided so carefully that even silence seemed to bend around it. Mara. I had loved Mara Quill before I understood how love could become both a home and a wound. We met when we were 24, both broke, proud, and pretending we had our lives figured out. She worked at a community art center, teaching children how to paint things their parents were too tired to notice. I was a junior engineer with cheap shoes and big dreams, convinced that if I worked hard enough, I could build a life no one would ever be able to take away from me. Mara had sunlight in her laugh and storms behind her eyes. She could turn a cracked mug into a flower pot, a rainy sidewalk into a memory, a bad day into a story worth surviving. For 2 years, I thought she was the answer to every lonely prayer I had never spoken. Then everything fell apart in the cruelest ordinary way. No dramatic betrayal, no single villain, just pressure, grief, pride, and words thrown like stones by 2 people who did not know how to ask for help. My mother got sick. My job became heavier. Mara wanted me to slow down, to come home earlier, to stop acting like love could survive on leftovers. I wanted her to understand that I was trying to protect our future. We were both right, and we were both wrong. The last time I saw her, she stood outside the hospital entrance in a blue coat, tears shining on her face as morning traffic moved around us like the world had no idea ours was ending. She told me she could not keep waiting for a man who only came back after something was already broken. I told her maybe she should stop waiting. Those were the last words I gave her. For 3 years, I carried that sentence like a shard under my ribs. Now, standing in my apartment while pale afternoon light spilled across the floor, I stared at Soren and felt that old shard twist. I asked who was waiting, but my voice sounded strange, as if someone else had borrowed it. Soren glanced toward the living room. There was a ceramic cup on the coffee table, untouched. Beside it sat a small canvas bag with paint stains along the seams. My chest tightened before I saw her, before I heard her, before any proof existed. Some part of me recognized the shape of the past before it stepped into the room. Mara was sitting near the window, where the sunlight made the dust look like gold. She looked thinner than I remembered, not weaker exactly, but worn down in the way people become when life has taken more than sleep from them. Her hair was shorter, tucked behind one ear. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. And beside her chair, half hidden against the wall, was a little boy with dark curls and serious eyes, holding a wooden airplane like it was the only safe thing in the world. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The city hummed outside. Somewhere below, a car horn sounded, then faded. Mara stood slowly, and all the careful walls I had spent 3 years building seemed to crack at once. She said my name, but not loudly. Just Arlen, soft and trembling, like she had carried it a long way and was afraid it might break if she set it down too hard. I wanted anger to save me. I wanted to ask why she was here, why she had brought a child, why she had chosen my apartment after all this time. But when I looked at the boy, my questions became heavier. He looked at me with a frightened curiosity that felt too familiar. His eyes were Mara's, but his mouth, the slight uncertain tilt of it, was mine. Mara saw the realization beginning on my face and lowered her eyes. His name is Oren, she told me, not as an announcement, but as a confession. He is 2 years and 7 months old. I did not tell you because I thought I was protecting him. Then she took a breath that seemed to hurt. And maybe I was protecting myself too. The room tilted. I had imagined many reasons Mara might return. Illness. Money. Forgiveness. A wedding invitation to prove she had moved on. I had imagined cruel things because loneliness makes the mind defend itself with poison. But I had never imagined a child standing in my living room, holding a toy airplane, watching me with the quiet seriousness of someone waiting to learn whether the world was safe. I sat down because my knees no longer trusted me. Soren quietly stepped back into the hallway, giving us the only gift he could give, space. Mara explained in broken pieces. After we ended, she discovered she was pregnant. She had wanted to call me, even dialed my number more than once, but my mother died 2 weeks later, and she saw the obituary online. She thought telling me then would feel like dragging me back into pain when I could barely stand. Later, when she found courage, she heard through a mutual acquaintance that I had moved cities and buried myself in work. Then shame grew around the truth like vines. Months became years. Her father got ill. Her job ended. She raised Oren with the stubborn hope that maybe love could still be given, even if it came from only one parent. I listened without interrupting, but inside me a storm was tearing through every room of my heart. I was angry, yes. Angry at her silence, at the years stolen from me, at the first steps I missed, the first words, the fevers, the tiny birthdays, the ordinary mornings that would never return. But underneath the anger was something more unbearable. Grief. I looked at Oren and felt love arrive before permission, sudden and terrifying. He did not know me. I had done nothing for him. I had not earned even the smallest place in his life. And yet my heart recognized him with a force that nearly broke me. Mara told me she had not come to demand anything. She had come because Oren had started asking why other children had fathers who came to school events, why family drawings always had one space she never knew how to explain. She had come because her father's health was failing, because her support system was shrinking, because she was tired of making decisions out of fear. Most of all, she had come because Oren deserved truth before adults turned it into another secret. The first time Oren spoke to me, it was not dramatic. He did not call me father. He did not run into my arms. He simply lifted the wooden airplane and asked if I knew how to fix wings. One side had cracked near the edge. I stared at the toy, then at him, and something inside me softened so painfully I almost looked away. I told him I could try. My hands shook as I took it. He watched every movement, suspicious but hopeful, and in that tiny exchange I understood something that humbled me. Children do not ask for perfect people. They ask for people who stay long enough to try. That afternoon became the longest afternoon of my life. Sunlight moved slowly across the apartment floor as we talked, paused, cried, and talked again. Soren returned with sandwiches nobody ate and juice that Oren accepted after Mara nodded. I repaired the wooden wing with glue from Soren's camera shelf, and Oren sat beside me, close enough that his small shoulder brushed my arm once. That touch nearly destroyed me. I had spent years believing I was alone because life had taken people from me. Now I understood that sometimes loneliness is also built from what we are too hurt to reach for. But healing did not arrive like music swelling at the perfect moment. It came awkwardly. It came with hard questions. I asked Mara why she did not trust me. She asked why I had made it so easy to believe I would choose work over love. I admitted I had hidden behind responsibility because I was terrified of being helpless. She admitted she had hidden behind motherhood because telling the truth meant facing the possibility that I might reject both of them. We did not excuse each other. We did not magically erase the damage. But for the first time, we stopped trying to win the old argument and started mourning what it had cost. Over the next weeks, my life changed in small, frightening ways. Mara did not move in. We agreed that would be too much too soon. Instead, we began with daytime visits at the park, then lunches, then short afternoons where Oren and I built towers from blocks and read books about animals with ridiculous names. The first time he laughed at something I did, a full bright laugh that made Mara cover her mouth and turn away, I felt a door open inside me that I thought had rusted shut forever. I learned that he hated peas, loved pigeons, believed clouds were sleeping mountains, and became very serious whenever crossing a street. I learned that fatherhood was not a title handed to me by blood. It was 1,000 tiny choices, made again and again, especially when no one applauded. There were painful days too. One afternoon, Oren fell and scraped his knee, and he reached for Mara first. I smiled because I knew he should, then went home and cried in the shower because grief can be selfish even when love is not. Another day, he asked why I had not been at his second birthday. Mara froze, and I felt the old anger rise like fire. But then I looked at his face and understood he was not accusing me. He was trying to place me in a story that had already begun. So I told him the gentlest truth I could, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that take time to repair, but I was here now, and I wanted to be there for the birthdays still coming. He thought about that, then asked if the next cake could have airplanes. I promised it could. Mara and I also changed, though not in the simple way people expect. We did not rush back into romance as if a child were a bridge built for adult regrets. Trust had to be rebuilt with honesty, not nostalgia. Some days we sat on opposite ends of a bench while Oren played, speaking carefully about schedules, childcare, money, boundaries. Other days, a shared memory would pass between us like a bird returning to an old roof, and for a moment we would remember who we had been before fear taught us to hurt each other. I apologized for leaving her emotionally alone when my mother was dying. She apologized for making the biggest decision of my life without me. Both apologies were late. Both mattered. The true turning point came on a bright Saturday morning at the Community Arts Center where Mara had started teaching again. Parents and children filled the room with colored paper, glue sticks, and laughter. Oren had invited me to see his painting, and I arrived holding a small bouquet of yellow flowers because I did not know what fathers brought to art shows. The painting was messy and beautiful, with 3 figures standing under a huge orange sun. One had short hair and a blue dress. One had tall legs and a gray shirt. One was very small and holding an airplane. Above them, in uneven letters Mara had helped him write, were the words, "My people." I stood there in that crowded room and could not speak. Mara stood beside me, tears shining but not falling. Oren tugged my sleeve and asked if I liked it. I bent down, pulled him gently into my arms, and told him I loved it more than anything. For the first time, he leaned into me without hesitation. His small hands rested against my shoulders, and in that noisy sunlit room, with children laughing and paper scraps everywhere, I felt the past loosen its grip. Not vanish. Not become harmless. But loosen enough for me to breathe. Near the end of that day, Mara, and I walked outside while Oren ran ahead chasing Bubbles. Another child was blowing near the sidewalk. The sky was clear, the kind of blue that makes even old buildings look forgiven. Mara told me she did not know what the future would look like. I told her I did not either. But I knew I wanted to keep showing up. For Oren. For the truth. For the part of us that had survived beneath all the wreckage. She nodded, and for the first time in 3 years, her smile did not feel like goodbye. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps this story reach someone who may be carrying regret, waiting for forgiveness, or needing the courage to begin again. Special request: comment I believe in second chances if you have ever seen love return in a way no one expected. Months later, I came home from another work trip, but everything was different. My apartment was no longer silent in the same cold way. There were crayon drawings on my fridge, a tiny pair of sneakers by the door, and a wooden airplane on the shelf near my keys. Soren was in the kitchen watering his plants, smiling like a man who had seen a miracle grow slowly and did not want to scare it away. From the living room came Oren's voice, bright and impatient, calling my name because he had been waiting to show me a new trick. Mara stood by the window, sunlight in her hair, holding 2 cups of tea. She did not whisper this time. She simply looked at me with eyes full of all we had lost and all we were still brave enough to build. And as Oren ran toward me, arms open, I finally understood that coming home is not always about returning to a place. Sometimes it is about arriving, after years of pain, in the hearts that never truly stopped waiting for you.